Hi everyone, Om Shanti. Welcome to The Next Normal in collaboration with America Meditating Radio. I'm your host, Sister Jenna, and the world has been filled with stress for a long time, but haven't you recognized that it's increasing more and more and more? And in today's world, the stress is no less for women. Women are at greater risk of feeling overwhelmed, alone, and stuck by life's adversities. But our next guest is on a mission to free 1 million talented and caring women to handle stress in ways to joyfully achieve much more. But her unique mentally tough woman programs are making it possible to transform life's worst moments into real success stories. Her recent book, Why is Pono Not Pono Today, highlights the Aloha spirit, which I love. If you have no idea what the Aloha spirit is, please Google and look it over. I think it's time for America to create an Aloha spirit as a bill in law. So the Aloha spirit in action she has been initiating to help families quickly bring about their best, especially when someone is stressed. Deb Lewis is a trailblazer from West Point's first class with women, the first of many extremely stressful situations. She's a retired Army colonel and Harvard MBA. Colonel Deb commanded 3 U.S. Army Corps of Engineer districts, including a $2.1 billion reconstruction program in combat. She survived the attack on the Pentagon on 9/11, and while serving on the Joint Staff Anti-Terrorism Team. Called a very caring leader by her people, Colonel Deb's experiences offer practical ways to create greater harmony and confidence when handling some of our toughest moments. Please welcome wonderful Colonel Deb to our show today. Deb, thank you so much for all that you've done and for serving the United States of America and making it safer. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's such an honor to be with you today. I thank you so much for your platform and your audience who is making such a difference. I know that they're paying attention to you. I watch how people are reviewing who you've interviewed, these amazing people you've interviewed. So to be asked in our time together, we've got our work cut out for us though.
Yeah, we sure do. We sure do. And it's funny, many of the folks that we invite on our show, myself and the team, it's like we look into the eyes of that person and we can see that their life is one of service and of helping to uplift humanity. So many times when, I don't know if it's the universe that's just planning to bring the most beautiful, powerful people in front of the world, but I also feel because you might see our numbers, we're non-commercial. So it's just really from the heart. And you can see that it's really paving a way of genuine conversations. And that's what I know you're going to offer us today. So Colonel Deb, is that okay if I address you like that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yes, that's lovely. Thank you.
You've clearly taken the road less traveled in life, and one that's been filled with a lot of stress. Tell us about some of the things that you've learned that helped you the most to take on so much stress and accomplish as much as you have.
Well, and the thing is, I think I need to start is that the world is not an easy place to live. But that doesn't mean that miracles and joyful moments can't be realized, because it is a miracle that we are alive. And I learned pretty early on that when you get punched, you say the world is tough. I tell you, do you want to be tougher? Because that's what we're about to talk about. I'm not going to handle you with kid gloves, because the world will not do that with you. And when I entered West Point, you can imagine it was like 172 years of tradition of all-male institution. My father was in the military. He had gone to West Point, but I hadn't visited it until I actually thought about going when the law changed to allow women. And I had no idea it was heading into a social revolution. The military, most people don't realize, is often on the cusp of when people want social change, they're the ones to introduce it. That doesn't mean it's any easier. It means you have some guardrails up, but not a lot. Stuff will happen, and people, sad to say, on the spectrum, they can be incredibly cruel with just a word or a hint of a word or an expression of their body or energy that they're projecting towards you, or they can be the most amazing example of leadership, caring, and love. And so I had the whole spectrum. And the first day I expected would be hard, and it was. I mean, we had malfunctions because of our uniforms. I mean, literally, our zippers broke because they had created women's zippers. They thought women's zippers, people intending to help and make it look good. It didn't work so well because our zippers broke, and we had to do a ceremony where you have to hold your hand up and swear an oath to the Constitution. And I had to ask my squad leader, do you have a safety pin? Which was not the acceptable questions of a new cadet. Yes, sir. No, sir. All were men. No excuse, sir. And sir, I do not understand. I guess I could have tried to weave the last one in, but I didn't, wasn't that smart. And I just said, sir, do you have a safety pin to hold my pants up for the parade?
Tell me a little bit.
Yes.
No, just tell me a little bit. How old were you, and what was it that led you into entering West Point?
I was 18 years old.
Wow.
And like many seniors graduating, you don't want to depend on your parents for funding. You want to be independent. And I had seen my dad, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do in life. I didn't know what specialty I wanted. I thought a doctor. But my brother had done that path. You see other examples and you say, it didn't work out that way for him. He's not a doctor. He's an amazing guy. I have two older brothers, but the second one actually entered the Naval Academy the day before I went to West Point. He was 2 years older. He approached the medical community. And then my parents moved on me. So my senior year, they left a forwarding address, but they moved on me and they left me with someone who had, guess what? 2 sons at West Point. And the short answer is one of them brought a friend who talked about how I could continue horseback riding. Some of your listeners may love the horseback ride, and I had a horse and I had grown up with horses, and that truly became a stabilizing factor at West Point because I did continue. He said, I'll get you on the team. And I'm thinking, I can ride horses. They're going to pay for my college, and I'm going to learn things that even if I decide not to make it a career, it will have given me skills to help me survive in life and do well, whatever I want. I like choices. I know you do too. I want choices in life. And when you don't try these tough things early and often, you find out you have fewer choices in life. Yeah. And so that it all magically came together to propel me to go. So many people had different experiences. I knew about the military, really didn't understand West Point too much, and had no idea. My dad's class, who was 30 years ahead, many were openly hostile to him. Why is your daughter going? And then he interviewed the gentleman, Norman Demores from New Hampshire, because that was my dad's residency, so that became mine. And Norman Demores, he asked him, he said, why did you give my daughter the offer of the nomination? And Norman turned to him and he walked over to his desk and picked up a picture and showed him the picture. And it was a young girl. He said, this is my daughter. I want her to be able to do what your daughter did. See, I'm choking up. When you think of that, the young girls don't realize that in one generation, your limits, your opportunities were incredibly limited. And in many countries, you can see that. But for some reason, we can't give them that context to say, it really has been a tough road. And we stand on the shoulders of the women that came before us who were jailed and persecuted and told that they don't matter. And if they hadn't done what they did, we would not be here today enjoying the things we have. So kind of that service. My dad was very much a service-oriented person. He didn't take the easy road. So I had a great example at home. And so all of those things meshed in. But the final one was, can you ride horses there? Yes.
That was the big bonus, right? That must have been quite stressful. But when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, you're cultivating and developing the best of you. You're setting the tone for your future, but it's also quite stressful. Why do you consider stress skills essential in the wake of so much tragedy and increasing violence in our world?
There's two things. The short reason is that when we do not train with stress skills, remember I talked about limiting options, we will go to our instincts. And the problem with that is, given my experiences, and I'll tell you on the second day what happened, my instincts stink. Because if you're going to be, the only time survival mode thinking is appropriate, and not even necessarily in combat, because I did not go to survival mode thinking other than a handful of times when people were either shooting at me, mortars were coming in, or I was being threatened to kidnap, or, terrible things were happening. That's about the fight. What are you going to do? You're going to fight. I had a gun. I had, bullets. Luckily, I didn't have to do hand-to-hand combat. You will run away. Not an option in life. You could try, but you can't run far enough because it's always going to catch up with you. And the one that most people defer to is turning off the light within them. They shut down, they give up their dreams, they become small, they don't live into their superpowers of what their potential is, and they create it. So every one of those choices, if you have no stress skills, you will default to those. And that's why you're seeing all the fighting. That's why you're seeing amazing, talented people checking out. And then or they're not even around. They don't even go to the meetings. They're not at the table. So in life, we have to develop this takes skill. It takes discipline. It's sometimes the hardest thing when someone is screaming and yelling at you, or you're facing a situation where you have reached the limits of your physical ability. You need to be able to dig deep, and with skills, you can do it safely, because life is like an extreme sport. If you are going to do something, let's say football, or let's say skateboarding, any of those, if you don't have the proper equipment on and you don't get trained in how to do it, you could die. It's not just a small thing. You could really massively injure yourself. So it's the very much same when we think about life situations. If you look at it that way, you will know that how to handle stress is perhaps the single most important thing for you to be successful in life, in all your relationships, and any goal that you set for yourself.
Yeah, speaking of those stress skills, how do stress skills, because you've mentioned it, actually improve our ability to build bridges, to even foster trust and offer maybe some helpful perspectives that can maybe just unleash potential to leave the world just better than we found it?
For me, it started that second day at West Point. And the reason I say that is because I was prepared for the other stuff, but I wasn't prepared for the path I had to go, which running. Some of your listeners are great runners, and women have become such fabulous runners. Me, I'll pass the test, but I'm not going to be the exceller. And we were judged with everybody else. And if you can't keep up with them, they're not going to look to you as credible. You have to know whatever, you have to jump how high, you have to be able to be willing to be arm in arm with them and suffer with them, or be able to work with that. And in my case, at the beginning of that run, I had prepared 1.5 miles. That was my limit. And if you've ever run as far as you can, as fast as you can, and want to get sick afterwards, that's me at 1.5 miles. And the person in charge told me, the run today is 2 miles. My heart started leaping out of my chest because I knew how I felt at 1.5 miles. He just said 8-9 football fields more. And I knew that all eyes were on the women because this was the first run. And we had 2 other women in our organization. And when I looked over, my roommate, who was much taller than me, longer legs, I thought, man, she's got she's got an advantage. And yet within 0.5 mile, she was dropping back. And I watched her, and now I'm in start hyperventilating? I'm looking at that and thinking, oh my gosh. And then I turned and I looked and I saw another woman in our unit, and I couldn't believe it, what I saw. She was smiling. I'm thinking, she's smiling. She's about my height. Oh my gosh, she's loving this. And I'm thinking, and I said, can't look there, gotta look here. And I made the worst affirmation, but it helped me focus on just taking the next step, the next step, the next step. And sometimes that's what you have to do to get through adversity, because when everyone knows you're trying and working, they will support you. And guess what? I made the run. I made that run. I made a terrible affirmation, I will say, because when you're going past your limits, I said, I don't recommend this one, but I said, you're going to pass out before you fall out. I gave myself an order. I said, your body, you're going to test your body to its extreme limits and see. That didn't work for everybody, but for me, I made that run. I made every run that first year, and they added combat boots and weapons. So to work together with people, they have to know that under stressful circumstances, you are not going to become a Mrs. Jekyll or Mrs. Hyde. You're not going to flip-flop because a little stress. People, because they're hungry or they're annoyed, or maybe, time is giving them a hard time, they become a different person. They become short and cryptic, and we all do it. But I don't know if you do it. I can't tell. I don't think you do it. But the rest of us haven't trained ourselves completely to not react when people do just outrageous things that annoy us, or that they lie, or things like that. And you have to stay. If people look at you right now, if you stayed like that, the way you present your energy and love to the world, they will trust you. They will want to work with you. They will show up. They will leap mountains to be able to help you, because you're there for them and they can trust you. And trust is something we don't even talk about much. We kind of do, but the trust really is broken when you explode on them. And how many times does it take? Once. Once. And they never forget it.
I know, they should though.
You can try to apologize, but the fact is, it's like putting a nail in them, and the scar's going to always be there. And
I think for me, like if I get it on the other end where it's being done to me, depending on the person, if I know they've always been well wishers for me, I've often felt that they're trying to get me to see something. I'm just not ready. But if it's someone who I feel I can see they don't have good wishes for themselves, so it's not going to be possible for them to even have good wishes for me, it just goes under the shed. I mean, I don't care. It won't impact me at all. If I'm on the other end bestowing it on somebody else and I care about them, I know that whatever I'm telling them in a state of stress, it's not getting through, because I'm in such a dilapidated state that how is it going to even impact them? So then I find that I start my journey within to just recapture who I know I am and what I'm here to do. But, each scene is a gift, even in the storm, it's come as a gift and it's helping us, whether we want to accept it or not. But I'd love for you to suggest to our beautiful viewers the start of our journey, like where do we start our journey to make stress our superpower and use it to build a more sustainable future?
Well, for the first thing, I want your listeners to play back your response, what you just said, because I could interview you and find out, okay, Sister Jenna, nobody comes to that understanding without a lot of experience. Because in experience in life, people think the happiest people and the calmest people are the ones that have had it easy. That has not been my experience. My experience is that they've usually gone to the war and back. They have been pummeled in life, and yet they choose to look at the world the way you just described. So what we're asking them to do, if I may, where do they start? They got to start with listening to that. And I have these glasses because it's got hearts, and we're not asking them to change the facts. The facts are the facts, but it's how you look at the facts and how you believe it. And what prompted the book that I wrote, Why is Pono Not Pono Today, is the fact that I was seeing angry people. Now I realize they're stressed people, but even they don't agree that they're stressed. They just think that's who I am. You need to accept that. And what we're trying to tell them is that's not how you build bridges, how you start. So one is really understanding at the core of it, we are all human, whether we're a woman or a man or however we self-identify. The MAN is part of human. Okay. And if we believe that we all are in this together, we will have a different way of looking at life and the world. And we also need to realize that each of us are a resource. Each of us have these phenomenal talents. And I know you've had this happen because you are so centered and core. You can have an intention and you can say, I wish I knew someone who understood how to make candy. I have these wonderful chocolates made of Hawaiian coffee and candy shaped in hearts. and you'll find the person pops up, right? The person just shows up that you just thought about. Instead of the Western influence is really about there's never enough time. And the Eastern influence is there's always enough time to do what's most important.
Yeah. And both, I think, are needed. Haven't you noticed? Like in one way, you can take the Eastern approach and you can sit there and wait until eternity for something to happen for you. And then the West will come and say, you've got to move. You got to put it into action. And so that balance of both. But let's talk about self-care. Have you noticed a lot of people are mentioning the practice of self-care? How do you practice self-care and balance your personal and professional life? It's so full. What's been your best way of balancing both?
I think I learned it at the run, but I have a thing that I call, when people have been faced a lot of trauma, I'm not going to handle them with kid gloves. If you're talking about a child, I'm not going to treat them like a child. I'm going to treat them like they have the ability to understand. And we've learned over time that they do. And so I have what I call, it's a great example of what you're talking about. It's called it's a 10-second reset, but it's called the Waterfall Method. Would you like to 10-second reset? So you practice it every day. I'm confident at some level, but I'm not doing a meditation. I'm telling you there's a race out there, and that anxiety that you might have at the beginning of the race, you might want to reset yourself so that you're transforming all that, any possible negative energy into a positive form. And then unlike a light bulb, it's become a laser for whatever you want to accomplish. So that's what the laser, I do this all the time. It's the Waterfall Method. We have I'm in East Hawaii, Hilo. We have lots of waterfalls here. And if you can think about a waterfall as being cleansing, that it can flush any toxic things that are residing inside of you. And if you use our breathing, the first thing affected is under stress, our breathing. It pulls us off the path of being our best. And you can only last unless you're Kate Winslet or Tom Cruise, who can hold their breath apparently for over 5 minutes. Unless you're people who have been practicing it, in 3.5 minutes, you die. And in a few seconds, what's happening to your brain? You're starving it of oxygen. So that's why I'm an engineer. I'm someone who's going to get you a practical solution. It's going to be quick, and it's going to help reset you so that you can do your best, leap that mountain or do it. So would you like to
Yes,
do? Okay.
please.
So 50% of us, apparently, when we're babies, we use our full-time lungs, all our lungs. And now 50% think you don't. So we don't breathe deep enough to begin with. And the other thing is that only 50% of us breathe through our nose. The rest are breathing through the mouth. And the problem with that is we have this beautiful engineered device here, our noses. And when you breathe in through your nose, you will oxygenate your brain more efficiently by taking it in through the nose, not only, but clearing dirty air. I mean, that's why you have all the things inside there that are cleaning the air as it's coming in. It moistens your vocal cords, so many benefits. But 50% are breathing through their mouth, drying their throat, getting sore throats, all kinds of things. So you breathe through your nose 3 seconds, and you breathe out through your mouth 7 seconds. And when you close your eyes doing it, you are imagining the waterfall coming, clean, cool air coming through your nose, and it completely cleanses your body as you're breathing out those 7 seconds. And you can feel when you put your hand in front of your mouth, it's hot. So think of the toxic goo that's been residing there 15 years because someone gave you a comment, you're going to push it out. And when you get really practiced at this, 10 seconds, you can reset when you start veering off that course. So 3 seconds in, you ready?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to do the counting because I found out I can't breathe and count at the same time. Okay, so on your mark, get set. It's in through your nose first, out through your mouth, 7 seconds. Go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How's that feel?
Very good. It was interesting when I reached 6. I was like, had to find that wind to get it out of me. Yeah, that's good.
Exactly. And that's the
Yeah.
last goo that you're flushing. It's,
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
that last little bit, you're like, I'm hurt. But you actually have a ton there.
Well, being on this tip, give us 3 more. Give us 3 pieces of advice at the beginning of your career. What would you tell yourself now?
What would I tell myself is, one is patience. I have this little car and it reminds me of patience because everybody wants to go really fast and they want to be perfect at it right away. Hey, I want to do that. Boom, I want to go. So this little car, if I do nothing with it, and I put it down, it goes nowhere. Nowhere, which means, I got to do all the work because I'm going to keep imagining. I can try to pretend it's going to go, but it's not. But patience is the one. But if I pull back a little bit, it won't do it maybe as well in my hand. It'll move a little bit forward, right? But if I put it on something else, like here, I'm going to show you. If I pull it back just the right amount, there it goes. It'll go like 6 feet. It'll, and so I just ask people, number one, in addition to resetting yourself to be at your best, you have got to have the patience and learn the skills like you're trying to share with your listeners. All the interviews, every interview is filled with these life-changing nuggets that it'll hit them at a particular, they want to listen to them over and over because they're at a different place at different times. And then the third thing, I think based on the book, I want you to know that there's a lot of people. Pono is a word. We know what the spirit of Aloha is, and that's where we're in that loving place. You can look at someone and know the spirit of Aloha is alive and well in you, Sister Jenna. I can tell. It's just that place, that anchor. I can try to push you off of that, but you are so solid, you're not going to be pushed it, and you're going to continue to have that slight smile on your face and that people know that you are loving and giving, right? And so, but there's a whole lot of people like Pono here, and Pono is like a temperature gauge. Can you tell if you're not Pono? Yes. Can you tell when you are Pono? Yes. How about other people? Maybe, maybe not. There's a handful that are going to be actively like this, but a lot of them are, as adults, children will show you who they are. They're very authentic. That's what I love to learn from kids. But adults learn to hide it better. And it's their energy. I had someone give me such a snarky comment the other day. I said, do you just want to stay angry at me or do you want to talk? I think I threw him for a loop because he didn't contact me again on text. But the idea is, as you said, we're all there at some times. And when you don't look at it as a bad thing, this book talks about Aloha spirit in action. What do you do? And this little girl here is named Kuleana, which in Hawaiian, so Pono is about whether it's your situation or you, whether you're good. And the third, and Kuleana is really like responsibility. So if I told you to stand up and show me Kuleana, it's an action word. You don't know it, but it's someone who goes lovingly to a person that may have yelled at you and say, you seem really upset. Can I help you? What can I do to help you today? Is there one thing right now that would make it easier for you? And that is against your instincts, because your instincts is they're yelling at me, attacking me, because this is instincts, yelling because they don't know how to deal with the stress. Right. And then I'm an engineer. I'm going to turn you back to being happy, smiling, working together in as little as 10 seconds. And
Carrying that aloha spirit with you everywhere you go, huh?
yes. And so people know that that's how I react, and they can trust me to be themselves because we're human. We will react with the millions
Yes.
of emotions that we have. And I like to kind of cut it in half. You got the positive side and you got the negative side. If you're
Yes.
anywhere in the positive side, you go. Let's build it up and light that, get the bellows out and light that to be a huge flame to go out and produce things. If
Yeah.
it's negative, you need to stop. I have a comment. It's called when I have cockroach comment that people make, that's yellers. And then it's like a cockroach, it just sticks to you and it gets icky and you don't know where it's going and it's going to multiply and it's going to hurt things, but it's not going to kill you. But a termite comment, termites, when they take over your house, like here in Hawaii, in a year, they can take down a house because they completely, little snide comments. Well, you shouldn't have done that. Well, that was ridiculous. When people let those barbs, they call them barbs most of the time, they let them sit there and no one addresses it. I used to stop meetings and I would say, I wouldn't judge it. I would just say, you just said this, and what would anyone else say about that? And we had rules of engagement that you want to keep it positive, productive, because even the most negative situation can be described in a productive way to be solved, as opposed to commenting on how awful it is and gossiping and they're a terrible person and all that other stuff.
Waste of energy and waste of time. I know Pono or the Aloha spirit, those are some of your main words, or maybe a quote that you use, but is there anything else? Is there like a single word, saying, or motivational quote do you identify most with?
The first one is what I've said, is that life is tough. That's the truth. I wish I could change it. Do you want to be tougher? Because it's really about asking ourselves better questions. That's what I call a mental toughness tool. I have a helmet that protects your wisdom, like Athena, who's still talked about 2,500 years later from when first talked about. I have a shield, which if you look at the superheroes, they have their talents, but they still have equipment like a shield to protect you.
Yes.
And they have a sword, because these are for direct attacks. This is not to skewer people or fight them with the instinct. This is to, if someone's coming at you with an attack, a sword may not be enough. You have to maybe deflect. And sometimes you have to pin them to get them to pay attention and say, just stop. Just stop and ask a question. And my husband just asked me a question with the book. So the quote is that when you get better with stress, everyone has greater success.
So
everyone.
True. So true.
And the last piece is a single word. It says, do you realize that stressed is just blank spelled backwards? And let's think of the candy. Stressed is just desserts spelled backwards. And for another day,
about that one.
I can tell you my dessert story, but the fact is that I learned to understand that it's all in how you remember the glasses, all in how you look at things. And
true.
You can see that there's opportunity. Usually the biggest opportunities are in the worst adverse situations.
Yeah.
You have to, like a storm passing, you have to get through the storm, and it will pass. And I know it's horrible and feels bad, but just hold on at least to a tree or something so you won't get blown away. And then after it, take a look around, because that's the greatest opportunity to move into the direction that you want, to achieve your life goals, to love your relationships. I have a beautiful family that supports me. I've been divorced. I just made 23 years with my husband, who I adore. I have beautiful kids. We have beautiful kids in our family, and parents. My dad's 96. My mom's almost 90. I have brothers, family, extended family. My husband's family has just wrapped me. I have all these sisters I never had growing up. So, look around. You have treasures all around that we take for granted.
Yeah. Beautiful. Wow, beautiful. Colonel Deb, thank you. Thank you for helping us to arm us with some stress tools that we'll definitely need in the good times and definitely in times of crisis. You've got to leave us with a website where our listeners can get a hold of you if they're interested. And I'd love to have you back for us to talk some more. I love chatting with you. It's been really a delight. What's the best website that folks can reach out to you?
With the W's, mentally-toughwomen.com. And if they go /stress tools, they can touch. I have 5,000 students right now who are signed up for 2 of my free classes. Important ones about how to handle extreme stress, which the number 1 is breathing. Step number 1 of 5 is breathing. And then the other one is stress basics. But if they start with extreme stress, at least they will catch themselves faster when they're hurting. But mentallytoughwomen.com, and would love to hear from them. I'm on LinkedIn. If you go Deb Lewis Hawaii, I'm the only one taking that, or Mentally Tough Women will come up. And Deb at mentallytoughwomen.com, if they really have something that they want to. I've been able in a conversation in 1 hour to turn someone who thought was their worst possible moment, like you talked at the beginning, into an incredible opportunity and success story. So I live those daily. They come back to me. So everyone, if you're in a really rough, stuck, feeling overwhelmed, there are people like you and all your people you have interviewed, and people like me who are dedicated. I am dedicated to help people get these skills, because you won't get it in any school. You'll just get it through experience. And I don't think you want to go through what I did 10,000 times being mean.
That's okay. You see, you've made you so powerful. Thank you, Colonel Deb. We've greatly appreciated you.
You've been lovely, Sister Jenna. I knew this would be a fabulous time based on your other interviews. And I hope people will not only listen, but listen over and over, because they need to incorporate it to their lives. And when they do, as you've done, they'll live with such joy and love every moment.
Thank you. Beautifully said. Well, folks, we've heard from Colonel Deb, and she's given us some beautiful tools to de-stress, but to also evolve, especially for women. Come on, get out of being stuck and staying used to being stressed only, whether it's with the kids, your spouse, your partner, your job. And I know stress is good for us to some extent, where it pushes you, it motivates you, it gets you going, but don't get addicted to being in it all the time, but use it as a tool to help you to evolve in becoming the best you it can be. I mean, we need to be a better version of ourselves, like Colonel Deb and her shield. That shield, as I was looking at it in her image, it's like the shield of, I would call it yoga vibrations, where you've had such a deep connection to the divine that the aura from the divine is just protecting anything that's coming your way. 2, the sword of knowledge, that the more you come back your own waste thoughts and the waste thoughts of other people, you slay that soul with those thoughts. You go, no, I'm not that. Get going. It's always going to be a thought. And if your thoughts are governed by wisdom, knowledge, you're going to make it through. That
I just think one point is that there's a distinction between healthy and unhealthy stress.
Oh, yes, I'm sure.
Who chooses? Guess what? We do.
Yeah, it's always a choice. Yes, you did emphasize that. Yes, folks, you did.
Get rid of that. You have to get rid of the unhealthy choices.
Right. So you've got to remember, we all have choices. And when you wear that helmet on your head, just keep in mind that, you've got to protect your most sacred space, the soul within, which is who you are. Immortal, eternal, imperishable, and pure. Thank you so much for joining us today on America Meditating Radio, and in collaboration with your next normal. And remember, no one can take away your happiness unless you give them permission. And I suspect that we're really here to love each other the same. So thanks again for joining us. Take care of yourself. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay wise. Keep your shield. Right, Deb? Slay those dragons. Take care, everyone. See you soon.